to ask yourself the big question, what's a guy who's nearly 80 doing, calling himself a vegan and working towards changing people's minds about what they eat? I was born in the early part of the Second World War, brought up in a conventional way, eating the normal thing of the day, which was meat and 2 veg for most meals, finishing up during the week, roast on Sunday, all the usual conventional things. The important thing of education, in my view, is that you are open-minded. Being open-minded means that shows the importance of following research. Before the war, there was absolutely no research done into what was a healthy diet. There didn't seem to be any need for it, and so nobody did it. There were no scientists looking at nutrition as a whole. It was considered normal. What was considered normal was what I described to you, the meat and 2 veg or 3 veg. Luckily, my father and mother were keen on growing quite a few of their own fruit and vegetables, so we always, or mostly, had a certain amount of good fresh food to enjoy. As the years went by and I became independent, got married, had a couple of kids, we're talking now late 60s, there was a significant movement towards what was called at the time self-sufficiency. That was basically based on providing most of your own food and some of your own energy if you could, but at the same time people were starting to question what was proper food.
At the time it simply was not clear what it was, because nobody had done any research at all. So a few people started to look seriously at the idea of what is proper food, what it's designed for. We were always brought up with the idea that we were basically hunters and gatherers, but in fact, if you look back over several million years, which is when our systems were developed, when our guts reached their efficiency levels, when the brains were working up and so on, it takes millions of years to do it. We actually were frugivorous monkeys for a major part of our development. We spent most of our time up the trees, going for fresh fruit. We ate quite a lot of leaves, a certain amount of young buds and so on. Nuts, of course, were quite a major part of the diet. So there were lots of things that we didn't know. And it was only a few 100,000 years ago that we spread out from Central Africa to places all over the world. And it was during that period when food supplies were short or we didn't understand certain areas that we started to scavenge on meat as being the only things available, very often in an area which was unfamiliar to us, in areas where the plants were unfamiliar to us, and so it took several 100,000 years for us to become hunters and gatherers. But the difference was in those days that the meat that was eaten, and of course dairy and eggs may have been just short periods in certain seasons, but eggs were virtually not eaten. Dairy products were not food, they were of course baby foods. And as mammals, all mammals feed their babies on milk. But that should stop as soon as your permanent teeth come through, or even before when your permanent teeth come through. That should stop. It's a myth. One of those myths put out by the industry themselves, because of their ignorance partly, but also because they're trying to sell you their products, that things like animal foods, particularly dairy products and eggs, are part of a human's diet. They are categorically not. It was only really when farming became a reality a few thousand years ago that dairy products even became available. It was one of those occasions when there was a huge amount of change taking place. We will look at one or two other little issues in relation to diet and health in a future session. Thank you.